It was the rustle of satin and muffled sobs that caught Ryan Cooper's attention. Standing beside the gleaming white limousine, he checked his watch. 15 minutes until the ceremony was scheduled to begin, and the bride was still in the small antechamber of St. Patrick's Cathedral. Something wasn't right. As the hired chauffeur, it wasn't his place to interfere, but 5 years of raising his daughter alone had honed his instincts. That wasn't the sound of pre-wedding jitters. That was genuine distress. Ryan hesitated, then approached the door and knocked softly. "Ma'am? Is everything okay in there?" The sobbing abruptly stopped. After a moment's silence, the door cracked open to reveal Alexandra Morgan, resplendent in a $30,000 Vera Wang gown, her carefully applied makeup streaked with tears, her eyes red and haunted. "I can't do this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "He never loved me. It was all about my money. I just found out. A text on his best man's phone. He's been lying for 2 years." Ryan glanced down the hallway, where voices were growing louder with impatience. Wedding planners and bridesmaids would appear any second. He made a split-second decision that would change both their lives. "My car's right outside, back entrance," he said quietly. "If you want to leave, I can get you out of here, no questions asked." Alexandra stared at him, searching his face for judgment or ulterior motives. Finding none, she nodded once, decisively. "Please, I need to get away from here." "Follow me," Ryan said, stepping back to give her space. "And stay close." Guided by instincts honed during his military service, Ryan led Alexandra through a service corridor, timing their movements to avoid the growing commotion as guests wondered about the delay. Within minutes, they reached the limousine meant to carry the newlyweds from the ceremony. Ryan held the door open, and Alexandra gathered her voluminous skirts to climb inside. "Where to?" he asked, sliding into the driver's seat and meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror. "Anywhere but here," she said, her voice steadier now that escape was in motion. "Just drive." As they pulled away from the cathedral, Alexandra caught a glimpse of confused guests spilling onto the steps, of her fiancé James's angry face as he scanned the street. Then they turned a corner, and everything she was supposed to want disappeared from view. Ryan merged smoothly into Manhattan traffic, putting distance between the bride and the life she was fleeing. He hadn't planned on becoming anyone's getaway driver that morning, but as a single father to 8-year-old Emma, he understood something about making difficult choices to protect yourself and those you love. "Thank you," Alexandra said, removing her veil and tossing it aside. "You didn't have to do that. You could lose your job." Ryan met her eyes briefly in the mirror. "Some things matter more than jobs, ma'am." "Alexandra," she corrected, a small, genuine smile breaking through her tears. "My name is Alexandra." Ryan nodded, focusing on the road as he navigated through midtown traffic. The cathedral had been surrounded by photographers and guests in designer clothing, a society wedding that would now become tomorrow's scandal. He wondered briefly about the woman in his back seat, not just a runaway bride, but one whose wedding had clearly cost more than he earned in a year. "With all due respect, ma'am, Alexandra, you might want to think about where you're going. That dress will attract attention anywhere in the city." Alexandra looked down at the $30,000 worth of white satin and lace as if seeing it for the first time. A startled laugh escaped her. "You're right. I didn't think that far ahead." She looked out the window, considering. "Is there somewhere quiet, away from Midtown? I need to think." Ryan hesitated, then offered, "I know a small coffee shop in Brooklyn. Family-owned, quiet back patio. Not the kind of place anyone would look for." "A runaway bride," Alexandra supplied, a hint of bitter humor in her voice. "A person who needs some space," Ryan corrected gently. She studied him for a moment. "Thank you. Brooklyn sounds perfect." At 36, Ryan Cooper's life had fallen into a predictable routine. Wake up at 5, make breakfast for Emma, drop her at school, then work whatever jobs he could find to keep their small Brooklyn apartment and save for her future. Today had been a wedding chauffeur gig. Tomorrow would be airport runs. The day after that, security at a corporate event. The patchwork of employment wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. 5 years earlier, Ryan had been a different man, an Army veteran with a steady job in security management, a beautiful wife named Sarah, and a 3-year-old daughter who thought he hung the moon. Then came Sarah's diagnosis, aggressive breast cancer, and 18 months of watching the love of his life fade away. When she died, something in Ryan broke, but Emma needed him, so he found a way to keep going, to rebuild a life around his daughter's needs, even as he worked through his own grief. He had no idea that the crying bride in his back seat was Alexandra Morgan, the woman whose face had appeared on the cover of Fortune magazine just last month. At 34, she had built Morgan Tech from a dorm room project into a $15 billion company specializing in advanced cybersecurity. Her engagement to James Whitfield had been covered by every media outlet from the New York Times to TMZ, portrayed as a perfect merger of tech brilliance and old money sophistication. The reality, as Alexandra had discovered, was far less romantic. James had been carefully positioned in her path by his family, who had lost their fortune through bad investments, but maintained their social connections. For 2 years, he had played the role of devoted partner while secretly resenting her success, her intelligence, her fundamental belief that he genuinely loved her. As they crossed the bridge, leaving Manhattan's gleaming towers behind, Alexandra felt something tight in her chest begin to loosen. She caught Ryan watching her in the mirror, curiosity evident despite his professional reserve. "I'm sorry for disrupting your day," she said finally, dropping the pretense that this was a normal client-driver interaction. "No need to apologize," he replied with a small nod. "I'd say it's nice to meet you, but the circumstances seem less than ideal." "I'll never loved me," Alexandra found herself saying, the words spilling out before she could stop them. 2 years together, and it was all a lie to get to my money. Ryan's eyes flickered to the mirror again, then back to the road. "That's his loss," he said simply. The unexpected response, not prying questions or awkward sympathy, made Alexandra look at her driver more carefully. There was something in his demeanor that suggested he understood loss intimately. "Do you have family waiting at home, Ryan?" she asked, suddenly wanting to think about anyone's life but her own. A small smile softened his face. "My daughter, Emma. She's 8, probably finishing her math homework and hoping I bring home ice cream. No wife wondering where you are when your client disappears?" The smile faded slightly. "My wife passed away 5 years ago, cancer." "I'm sorry," Alexandra said, genuine regret coloring her tone. "That was intrusive of me." Ryan shrugged. "Life happens. You adjust and keep going for the people who need you." Something about his matter-of-fact acceptance of tragedy touched Alexandra more deeply than all the expensive therapy sessions she'd attended after her parents' bitter divorce. This man had lost the person he loved most and somehow kept moving forward. Meanwhile, she had been about to marry someone who didn't love her at all, out of some misguided attempt to create the family she'd always wanted. 20 minutes later, they arrived at a small, brick-fronted cafe in a quiet Brooklyn neighborhood. Ryan helped Alexandra from the car, lending her his uniform jacket to partially cover her wedding dress. Inside, he led her to a secluded corner of the back patio, sheltered by trellises covered in climbing plants. "Coffee?" he offered, once she was settled. Alexandra nodded gratefully. As Ryan went inside to order, she pulled out her phone to find 37 missed calls and over 50 text messages. Her mother, "Where are you? You're ruining everything." James, "Baby, whatever's wrong, we can fix it. Just come back." Her assistant, "Press is going crazy. Needs statement ASAP." She turned off the phone and dropped it into her purse. Ryan returned with 2 coffees and a paper bag. "Blueberry muffin," he explained, setting it before her. "Sugar helps with shock." Alexandra hadn't realized how hungry she was until that moment. As she broke off a piece of muffin, she noticed Ryan checking his own phone, a small frown creasing his brow. "Problem?" she asked. "Emma's school called. She's running a fever. I need to pick her up." He hesitated. "I'm sorry to cut this short. I can call you a cab, or—" "Take me with you," Alexandra said impulsively. Ryan's eyebrows rose. "To pick up my sick kid? I can't go home yet. I can't face any of them. And She stopped, realizing how selfish she sounded. "I'm sorry. That's your family time. I'll find my own way." Ryan studied her for a long moment. "You can come," he said finally. "But fair warning, our apartment isn't exactly what you're probably used to." Alexandra felt a genuine smile form for the first time that day. Right now, that sounds perfect. The elementary school was a red brick building with cheerful murals painted along the entrance. Ryan moved with practiced efficiency, signing forms and speaking softly to the nurse while Alexandra waited in the hall, his jacket still covering her wedding dress. When Emma appeared, she was a miniature version of her father. Same brown eyes, same serious expression, though currently flushed with fever. "Daddy," she said, wrapping her arms around Ryan's waist, then noticing Alexandra. "Who's that?" "This is Alexandra," Ryan explained, smoothing his daughter's hair. "She's having a tough day too. I thought she could hang out with us for a bit." Emma's eyes widened as she took in the white gown partially visible beneath the jacket. "Are you a princess?" Alexandra knelt to the child's level, smiling. "No, just someone who made a mistake and is trying to fix it. Your dad was kind enough to help me." "Helps everyone," Emma said with 8-year-old certainty. "That's his superpower." Back at the Coopers' apartment, a modest 2-bedroom walk-up with worn but clean furniture, Ryan settled Emma on the couch with medicine and a favorite blanket. Alexandra stood awkwardly in the living room, feeling both conspicuously out of place in her wedding finery and strangely comfortable in the obvious home environment. "I should change," she said, gesturing to her dress. "Do you have something I could borrow?" Ryan disappeared into his bedroom and returned with a faded NYU t-shirt and sweatpants. "They'll be big, but better than a wedding dress for lying low." In the small bathroom, Alexandra carefully stepped out of the $30,000 gown and hung it on the back of the door. Dressed in Ryan's borrowed clothes, she studied her reflection. Smeared makeup, disheveled hair, designer diamond earrings still glittering incongruously. With deliberate movements, she removed the earrings, washed her face clean, and pulled her hair into a simple ponytail. The woman who looked back at her seemed younger, more vulnerable, but somehow more herself than she had appeared in months. When she emerged, Emma was setting up a board game on the coffee table. "Dad said you might want to play while he makes soup," she announced. "Do you know how to play Monopoly?" Alexandra smiled at the irony. "I think I can figure it out." For the next hour, as Ryan prepared homemade chicken soup in the small kitchen, Alexandra found herself fully absorbed in playing a board game with a feverish 8-year-old who showed no mercy in her quest for Boardwalk and Park Place. The billion-dollar deals and corporate acquisitions that normally filled Alexandra's days seemed distant and unimportant compared to Emma's triumphant grin when she built her first hotel. "Soup's ready," Ryan announced, bringing 3 steaming bowls to the coffee table. "Sorry for the informal dining. Emma likes the couch when she's not feeling well." "It's perfect," Alexandra said, surprised to realize she meant it. When was the last time someone had cooked for her without being paid to do so? When had she last eaten a meal without checking her phone every 30 seconds? As they ate, Emma peppered Alexandra with questions about her favorite colors, animals, and movies, while Ryan occasionally interjected to remind his daughter to let their guest breathe. The simple meal, the undemanding conversation, the absence of pretense, all of it felt like oxygen to Alexandra after years of suffocating beneath expectations and appearances. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep on the couch, Ryan brought Alexandra a cup of tea and joined her by the apartment's small window overlooking a quiet street. "Thank you," she said, "for everything today. You had no reason to help a stranger having a meltdown, especially one who complicated your day with your daughter." Ryan shrugged slightly. "Everyone deserves kindness when they're having their worst day." "Even billionaires who run away from their own weddings?" Alexandra asked, watching his expression. If Ryan was surprised by her casual reference to her wealth, he didn't show it. Especially people making hard choices under pressure. Money doesn't shield you from pain. "No," she agreed softly. "It doesn't." She hesitated. "I should go. I've imposed enough, and you need to focus on Emma." "Where will you go?" he asked, genuine concern in his voice. Alexandra considered the question. Her penthouse would be the first place James and her family would look. Hotels would require ID that could be traced. "I have a friend," she said finally, "a college roommate who lives in Queens. I can stay with her for a few days until I figure things out." Ryan nodded. "I'll drive you. You don't have to." "Emma's asleep. Mrs. Rodriguez next door is a nurse. She can listen for her for 30 minutes, and no offense, but you don't exactly blend in even in my clothes." His tone was gentle but firm. Alexandra found herself smiling again. "Are you always this stubborn when helping damsels in distress?" "Only on Saturdays," he replied, with a small grin. The drive to Queens was quiet, both of them aware that their unlikely connection was drawing to a close. When they reached her friend's apartment building, Alexandra turned to face Ryan directly. "I don't know how to thank you properly." "No thanks needed, just—" He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "Just make sure whatever you do next is because it's what you want, not what someone else expects." Alexandra impulsively reached for his hand, squeezing it once before stepping out of the car. "I will. Take care of Emma. And yourself." "You too, Alexandra." She watched the limousine pull away, a strange emptiness settling in her chest as it disappeared around a corner. Then she squared her shoulders and buzzed her friend's apartment, ready to face the chaos she had created. The next morning, Alexandra's face was splashed across every news outlet and social media platform. Tech billionaire leaves banker at the altar. The stories ranged from sympathetic to scathing, with sources close to the couple suggesting everything from cold feet to a psychotic break. James played the role of devastated fiancé to perfection, appearing appropriately concerned in the brief statement he released to the press. From her friend's apartment, Alexandra watched the speculation swirl while she methodically reassembled the pieces of her life. First, calls to her executive team, assuring them she was fine and would return to the office Monday. Next, a brief factual statement to the press. The wedding between Alexandra Morgan and James Whitfield did not proceed as planned. Miss Morgan asked for privacy during this personal matter and will be focusing on her company's upcoming product launch. She ignored the frantic calls from her mother and James, responding only to a text from her younger brother. "You okay, Lex?" with a simple, "Better than I've been in years." The most difficult task was returning to her penthouse to collect clothes and personal items. She timed it carefully, arriving when she knew James would be at his office, bringing her friend as both support and witness in case he appeared. The apartment felt strange now, tainted by the knowledge that the man who had shared it had never truly loved her. She packed quickly, taking only what she needed, leaving behind the expensive gifts he had given her over the years. 3 days after what the tabloids were now calling the Morgan matrimonial meltdown, Alexandra returned to Morgan Tech headquarters, head high as she walked through the familiar glass doors. Her assistant, Taylor, met her with wide eyes and a stack of messages. "The board wants an emergency meeting," Taylor said, falling into step beside her. "And James has called 17 times." "Schedule the board for tomorrow morning," Alexandra replied calmly. "Block James's number." In her office, surrounded by the company she had built from nothing, Alexandra felt her confidence returning. One decision, walking away from a mistake before making it permanent, had set off a media firestorm, but it wouldn't define her. She had weathered corporate crises, market crashes, and sexist dismissals of her abilities. She would weather this too. That evening, as she worked late reviewing quarterly projections, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. The message was simple. "Just checking that you're okay. Emma made you a get well card, though I told her you weren't actually sick. Ryan." Something warm bloomed in Alexandra's chest. She had thought about Ryan and Emma frequently over the past few days. Their simple kindness, the peaceful hours in their apartment, the way neither had treated her differently once they realized who she was. She responded, "Much better. Tell Emma thank you. How's her fever?" Their exchange was brief, but lifted Alexandra's spirits immeasurably. Before she slept that night, she sent one more message. "Thank you again for that day. You were right. I'm making choices for me now." The following weeks brought both challenges and unexpected clarity for Alexandra. The board meeting had been tense but ultimately supportive once she assured them that her personal life would not affect the company's operations or public image. James had finally stopped calling after she had her lawyer send a formal cease and desist letter, though his family continued to make pointed comments to the press about her emotional stability. Most surprising was the quiet support she received from unexpected quarters. Junior employees sent small notes of encouragement, Women in tech reached out with their own stories of prioritizing themselves over societal expectations. Her college roommate organized a non-wedding reception with their closest friends, complete with a cake that read, "Congratulations on not settling." Throughout it all, Alexandra found herself exchanging occasional messages with Ryan, nothing intimate or inappropriate. Updates on Emma's school projects, a photo of the spectacular sunset from her office window, his recommendation for the best bagel place in Brooklyn. They established an unlikely friendship, conducted entirely through text messages. Then, nearly a month after the wedding, Alexandra found herself with a rare Saturday free of obligations. On impulse, she texted Ryan, "Any chance you and Emma would like to show me that park you mentioned? The one with the model boats?" His response came quickly. "Conservatory water in Central Park. Emma would love it. We're free after her soccer practice ends at noon." That afternoon, dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, Alexandra met them by the small pond where children sailed miniature boats across the water. Emma spotted her first, waving enthusiastically before running over. "Alexandra, Dad bought me a new boat. Do you want to help sail it?" Alexandra found herself drawn into Emma's excitement, kneeling beside the water to help launch the small craft. Ryan stood slightly apart, watching them with a smile that reached his eyes. "She's been talking about showing you her boat all morning," he said when Alexandra joined him on a nearby bench. "Fair warning. You've made quite an impression." "She's made one on me, too," Alexandra admitted. "Both of you have." They spent the afternoon in simple pleasures, sailing Emma's boat, buying hot chocolate from a vendor, walking through the fall foliage. Alexandra found herself laughing more than she had in months, relaxing into a version of herself that had nothing to prove to anyone. As evening approached and Emma's energy began to flag, Ryan suggested dinner at a small Italian restaurant near the park. "Nothing fancy," he warned, "but the best lasagna in Manhattan." "Sounds perfect," Alexandra said, meaning it. Over dinner, as Emma concentrated on drawing on her paper placemat, Ryan and Alexandra talked, really talked, about their lives. He told her about meeting Sarah in college, about their early struggles and later happiness, about the devastating months of her illness. Alexandra shared stories of building her company, the sexism she'd encountered, her complicated relationship with her ambitious mother and distant father. James seemed like the perfect solution, she confessed. Successful in his own right, from a good family, charming at dinner parties. "I thought we wanted the same things." She twisted her napkin. "I never even questioned if we loved each other. Not really." "That's the thing about love," Ryan said thoughtfully. "Real love doesn't need to be questioned, it just is." He looked at Emma, then back to Alexandra. "After Sarah died, I thought that part of my life was over. That Emma and I would just continue, survive. I didn't expect to feel anything else." "And now?" Alexandra asked softly. His eyes met hers. "Now I'm sitting across from a woman who walked away from the wrong life, talking about things that matter. And I'm wondering where it might lead." Something shifted between them, an acknowledgement of possibility, of doors opening rather than closing. The weeks that followed saw Alexandra and Ryan carefully building something neither had expected. Weekend outings with Emma evolved into quiet dinners after the child was asleep, long conversations that stretched into the night, a first tentative kiss on Alexandra's rooftop terrace under a sky full of stars. They moved slowly, both aware of the complexities involved. Ryan worried about the vast differences in their circumstances, the media attention that still followed Alexandra, what it might mean for Emma if things didn't work out. Alexandra struggled with trust after James's betrayal, with balancing her demanding career against her growing feelings for both Ryan and Emma. The first real test came 2 months into their relationship, when Alexandra invited Ryan to be her date for Morgan Tech's annual charity gala. It would mean stepping into the public eye as a couple, facing the inevitable speculation and scrutiny. "We don't have to do this," she assured him as they discussed it over dinner at her penthouse. "I can go alone. People are used to that." Ryan considered her carefully. "Are you ashamed to be seen with a chauffeur/security guard?" "God, no," she said immediately. "I'm worried about what they'll say about you, about Emma. The press can be cruel." Alexandra, he said, taking her hand, I've survived war zones and losing my wife. I think I can handle some gossip columns. The night of the gala, Alexandra waited nervously in her living room as Ryan was buzzed up by security. When he stepped off the elevator in a classic black tuxedo, she felt her breath catch. He looked handsome, confident, and completely himself, without pretension or posturing. You clean up well, Cooper, she said, trying to lighten her own tension. Not so bad yourself, Morgan, he replied with a grin, taking in her elegant blue gown. At the event, they caused exactly the stir Alexandra had expected. Whispers followed them across the ballroom, phones discreetly capturing photos, business associates making barely disguised inquiries about her friend. Through it all, Ryan remained unruffled, his hand warm and steady at the small of her back. The real moment of truth came when James Whitfield appeared, his family's social connections having secured him an invitation despite the broken engagement. He approached them at the bar, expression calculated to appear cordial, while his eyes remained cold. Alexandra, he said smoothly, you look well, and this is? Ryan Cooper, Ryan replied before Alexandra could speak, extending his hand with perfect composure. Nice to meet you. James ignored the offered hand. Quite a change of pace, Lex, he commented, using the nickname she had always disliked. From investment banking to, what is it you do exactly? Currently I'm consulting on Morgan Tech's physical security protocols, Ryan answered evenly. After 8 years in the Army and 5 in private security management, I have some useful perspectives. Alexandra felt a surge of pride at Ryan's calm dignity. She slipped her hand into his. Ryan sees people for who they really are, she said, meeting James' gaze directly. A rare and valuable quality. James's facade cracked slightly, irritation flashing in his eyes. Careful, Alexandra, the rebound rarely lasts. He turned and walked away without waiting for a response. You okay? Ryan asked quietly. Alexandra found herself smiling. Better than okay, actually. I think that's the first honest interaction James and I have ever had. Later that evening, she took the stage to announce Morgan Tech's new initiative, a scholarship program for young women in STEM fields, named after Ryan's late wife. As she spoke about Sarah Cooper's legacy living on through opportunities for others, she caught Ryan's eye in the crowd, saw the emotion he couldn't quite hide, and knew with sudden certainty that she was falling in love with this man who carried both strength and vulnerability with such grace. The photos from the gala appeared in every business and society publication the next day. Tech Billionaire's New Love, read the headlines, accompanied by speculation about Ryan's background and motives. Alexandra's board expressed concern about the company's image, about her judgment after the wedding debacle, about potential security risks of dating a former employee. For the first time in her career, Alexandra pushed back hard. My personal life is my own, she told them firmly. Ryan Cooper has impeccable credentials, a work ethic any of you would envy, and more integrity than this entire room combined. I trust him completely. That should be enough for this board. It was enough, barely, though Alexandra knew the scrutiny would continue. What she hadn't expected was Ryan's reaction to the media frenzy. I can't do this to you, he said that evening, standing in her kitchen after Emma had fallen asleep in the guest room. Your reputation, your company, they're too important to risk on someone like me. Someone like you, Alexandra repeated, her voice rising. You mean someone honest, kind, and genuine? Because those are apparently rare qualities in my world. You know what I mean, Ryan insisted. I'm a widower with a kid, 3 different jobs, and an apartment the size of your closet. I don't belong in your life. That's not your decision to make, she said, anger and hurt mingling in her chest. After everything with James, do you really think I care about appearances, about what people expect? I care about what this attention might do to Emma, he countered. About what happens when you realize this was just a phase, a reaction to your almost marriage. Alexandra stepped back as if he had slapped her. Is that what you think this is? Ryan ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. I don't know what this is, Alexandra. I just know that falling for you was never part of my plan, and I'm terrified of what happens when our worlds inevitably collide. They already have collided, she said quietly. The day I ran from my wedding. The day you helped me without asking questions. The day I played Monopoly with your daughter while wearing your clothes. She moved closer, placing her hand against his cheek. Our worlds collided, Ryan, and for the first time in my life I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. He covered her hand with his own, conflict evident in his eyes. I can't lose someone again, Alexandra. I barely survived it the first time. I can't promise we won't hurt each other, she admitted. No one can. But I can promise I won't walk away when things get difficult. I already did that once, remember? Ran from the wrong life. I'm not running from the right one. The tension held between them for a long moment, then gradually eased as Ryan pulled her into his arms. The right one, huh? He murmured against her hair. Feels that way to me, she whispered back. They were interrupted by a small voice from the doorway. Are you fighting? Emma asked, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Ryan immediately knelt to his daughter's level. No, sweetheart. We were having a grown-up discussion about complicated feelings. About the pictures of you in the magazines, Emma asked perceptively. The kids at school showed me on their phones. They said Alexandra is famous and rich. Alexandra knelt beside Ryan, meeting Emma's serious gaze. I am those things, Emma. But that's not all I am. Just like your dad isn't just a driver or a security guard, he's your father, a veteran, an amazing cook, and the man who helped me when I was very sad. Emma considered this thoughtfully. People are lots of things at once, she said with 8-year-old wisdom. Like, I'm a student, and a soccer player, and your friend, and Daddy's daughter. Exactly, Alexandra agreed, feeling a rush of affection for this remarkable child. So are you going to be my dad's girlfriend? Emma asked directly. Because Sophia at school says you should come to career day since you run a big company, but only if you're going to stick around. Ryan made a choked sound that might have been embarrassment or laughter. Alexandra bit her lip, fighting a smile. Would it be okay with you if I was your dad's girlfriend? And if I stuck around? Emma shrugged with elaborate casualness. I guess, as long as you still play Monopoly sometimes, and help with my science projects, and make Dad laugh like he does when you're here. I think I can manage that, Alexandra said solemnly, though her heart felt lighter than it had in years. Later, after Emma had been tucked back into bed, Ryan pulled Alexandra close in the quiet kitchen. She's right, you know. You do make me laugh. And you make me feel safe, Alexandra replied. Not because you're physically strong or have security training, because you see me, really see me, and stay anyway. 6 months after the wedding, that wasn't, Alexandra stood on a stage in Central Park, addressing the crowd gathered for Morgan Tech's anniversary celebration. The company had just announced record profits and a groundbreaking new security protocol, but Alexandra's focus was elsewhere. 10 years ago, I started this company with a simple goal, to build something meaningful, she told the assembled employees, investors, and media. Along the way, I confused meaningful with successful. I chased achievements, acquisitions, and appearances at the expense of genuine connection. Her eyes found Ryan and Emma in the front row, both watching her with matching expressions of pride. 6 months ago, I made what seemed like the worst decision of my life, leaving a perfect relationship hours before my wedding. A ripple of interested murmurs ran through the crowd. That decision led me to reevaluate everything: what I wanted, who I trusted, how I measured success. Alexandra gestured toward a large screen where the logo for the Sarah Cooper Foundation appeared, a new nonprofit dedicated to supporting single parents returning to the workforce. Today, I'm announcing Morgan Tech's newest initiative. The Sarah Cooper Foundation will provide technical training, mentorship, and flexible employment opportunities for single parents rebuilding their careers, because sometimes the most innovative minds are those who have navigated life's greatest challenges. She beckoned Ryan to join her on stage, watching as he made his way up the steps, with Emma following close behind. The foundation will be led by Ryan Cooper, whose experience as both a security professional and a single father provides the perfect perspective for this mission. As applause rippled through the audience, Alexandra reached for Ryan's hand, no longer concerned about appearances or expectations. Emma slipped between them, taking both their hands in her small ones. 6 months ago, I ran away from a wedding because I finally understood what love isn't, Alexandra continued, her voice strong and clear. It isn't transaction or appearance or social advantage. In the months since, I've been fortunate enough to learn what love is. Showing up, seeing clearly, choosing daily to build something genuine. The celebration continued around them, but Alexandra barely noticed, focused instead on the two people beside her who had become the center of her world. Later, as they walked through the park together, Emma ran ahead to the model boat pond, leaving Alexandra and Ryan in a moment of privacy. "So," he said, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth, "not regretting your escape yet?" Alexandra looked at the man who had helped a crying bride flee her wedding and, in doing so, had given her the courage to find her way to a life that felt true. "Best getaway ever," she replied, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. As Emma called for them to watch her boat's maiden voyage, they walked hand in hand toward the pond, toward the child who had accepted Alexandra into their lives with such open-hearted grace, toward a future neither could have imagined that fateful day at the cathedral. Sometimes, Alexandra reflected, the most important journeys begin with the courage to walk away from the life you thought you wanted, toward the one you actually need.